let's just start. Those that join will join. Let's get this started just to keep you guys out here so you're not waiting for too long. Let me share my screen so you guys can participate properly. There we go. All right. Welcome to All About Law, our webinar session for all of you guys that are interested in law. Don't mind my picture being there. I have not done law. But we have three amazing apprentices that have done it or have done it already in the past or are currently doing it right now, here to give you guys all the knowledge and information you need to also have a successful career in law also. Before we get into that, just a brief description about Success at School. Maybe you know about us before, maybe you don't, no problem. Again, we are here to help every single young person on the school and obviously off the school as well to have the essential tools they need to gain knowledge and to confidently shape their future. Now, this can be in your career, working with employers, or just purely education. Yes, we speak a lot about apprenticeships, but we also do help young people that are interested in going down the path of university as well, but just need more information, whether that's help with their UCAS profile, the applications, deadlines, whatever it may be, we are here to help. Again, we're not your everyday careers platform. We're literally here to help you guys foster real life conversations by what we're doing, like things like we're doing right now. What we have, the session we have right now, is consistently available on our website. So after this session, if you still have more questions, we do have a platform that's available for you to ask questions 24/7 and receive answers as well from our mentors whenever, again, after the session you still have questions. It's a consistent tool base for you guys to use. It's not just a one question thing and then you run away. No, you guys can consistently keep coming back and asking us questions and having these conversations with us. We are here to help. Now, if you do have a question, guys, as I mentioned, please do head over to the Success at School website and drop them in the law webinar. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, it will take a bit of time for you guys to sign up. So I would advise, while the mentors are going through their introductions, to as be paying attention, but also be signing up at the same time, just to make sure that you can get your questions answered. So just for you guys to know how to do that, if you have a phone with you or you have a device, feel free to scan this QR code. It will take you directly to our site where you can sign up and you're able to make your profile. After signing up on the website, you'll receive an email. On the email, that's how you complete your registration. So again, scan this QR code. If you're not able to scan it, they say the device you're using is the one that you're using to connect to the session. No problem. Go to your browser and type in www.successatschool.org. It will take you directly to our website. Just to give you guys a brief introduction of how to do that, once you signed up, the page will look like this. Slightly different on the phone, but pretty much the same. You're going to go to our mentoring zone. You're going to go to career zone mentoring, and you're going to press law. And then feel free to drop your questions, as some other people have done it as well, and you'll get an answer during this session. So again, mentoring zone, career zone mentoring, law, and then just drop your question there. And we're excited to answer your questions. All right, let's get started. So these are our mentors. Our three lovely, excited, engaged mentors ready to give you guys the tips and the tricks that you need to also succeed like they are currently doing as well. So let's start with Jamal. A brief introduction. He's going to let us know what apprenticeship he's doing and what his journey was like from application to his first month starting and how things are going for him now. So over to you, Jamal.
Thanks, Alex. So hi, everyone. Like I said, my name's Jamal. I am a current third year solicitor apprentice. So it's a level 7 degree apprenticeship. My version of it is 5 years. I know that it's a little bit different for Jordan and Orpheus because things change basically. I initially had applied to go to university. I knew I wanted to do law. I was going to take a gap year to do some work, do some traveling before I eventually began my journey. I was pretty set on going to university, but I also knew that I really wanted to travel and I really wanted to practice as well. So what happened to me was in the interim between me doing my A-levels and eventually starting my apprenticeship, the rules around returning student loans or repaying student loans changed from what used to be about 20 to 25 years to 50 years. And all of a sudden, university seemed a little bit less attractive to me. So someone I know sent me some information about apprenticeships, and I thought I'd try my hand at it. And 2.5 years down the line, I can safely say it was the right decision for me. Like I said, I really knew I wanted to practice, but it's good to know that for me, since I started 2.5 years ago, I've been gaining the same skills, and I'm sure that the others will echo this, that you would be gaining as a trainee solicitor fresh out of university anyway. So it really just gives me an advantage over people who have gone to university and are then coming into those roles. So I'd say things are going pretty well right now. I think we're on to Jordan next.
All right, let's move on to Jordan.
Sorry, I was on mute. Hello everyone. Yeah, my name is Jordan. I've actually finished my apprenticeship now, and I'm a qualified solicitor. I did do the level 7 degree solicitor apprenticeship, and as Jamal said, mine was slightly longer. I think just because of when I started it in 2018, and they were a bit new, and it was, you know, sort of trial and error. So I know that now they are a bit shorter, which is better if you are considering an apprenticeship. My sort of journey into being an apprentice, again, it was a bit weird because they weren't very well known around the time, and my school actually thought they were a bit of a scam. So I did also apply to uni. I applied to do history, but ultimately I just decided not to go. I had a couple of interviews for a few apprenticeships, and I just thought that, yeah, it was really for me. I'm quite a practical learner, and I've always had part-time jobs, so I knew that it would be something that would lend itself to my skill set. In terms of how it went and how things are going now, yeah, looking back in hindsight, I'm so glad that I chose to qualify via an apprenticeship. I've got some amazing friends who went to uni the traditional way and did law, and even just the uni debt that they've come out with alone makes me so grateful that I had the opportunity to do it through an apprenticeship. But yeah, I think the skills that you learn and the fact that you can work with qualified lawyers for such a long amount of time in a training role is just completely invaluable. And yeah, as they're going now, I'm thoroughly enjoying being a qualified solicitor, and if I had to do it all again, I definitely would.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Faith.
Hello everyone, my name is Orpheus and I'm a first year solicitor apprentice started last year in September, and unlike Jamal and Jordan, I'm actually in the middle. My course is currently 6 years long. And yeah, my journey to getting there is also probably a little bit different. I actually attended university for 1 year before starting my apprenticeship program. So when I was in sixth form, I wasn't very clued up on law, didn't really have an interest, wasn't exposed to it ultimately, and I went down the route of economics. So I went and studied economics for for a year, but it was within the first few months where I realized that it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do, and I'd finally had my exposure to law. And throughout that first year, I sort of searched my options. One of the routes, which a lot of you might know, is the PGDL. So you complete a non-law degree, then you can complete a year conversion before then going on to do your training contract. So that was one of the options that I looked at. And then the other option was ultimately leaving and starting in law, either as a degree or an apprenticeship. And for me, I don't think it was too hard of a decision. I kind of wanted to get into law as soon as I possibly could. So ultimately, I knew I was going to either change degree or do an apprenticeship. And in my opinion, if you're going to pick between the two, I don't think it's a difficult choice. Particularly someone like myself, I kind of enjoy the practical side of things and what you're doing actually have an outcome in day-to-day life. So yeah, I made my decision to leave. I done 1 year, then I did a year of traveling, which was also something I regretted not doing, leaving sixth form, and then I started my apprenticeship in September. And then in terms of how things are going, I'm still relatively new, so I've just hit the 6-month mark, like not too long ago. But I think I've had quite a lot of good exposure, and to echo sort of what Jamal said, I've practically been doing trainee sort of level stuff. So the ability to do that, 4 years prior to when you would have originally, having gone down university, I think is only an advantage going forward.
Amazing. I'm going to pretend like we did this on purpose because we have 3 mentors that are literally at the beginning, middle, and at the end. We planned that. We definitely planned that. So again, before we get to the questions, just to remind you guys, if you want to ask your question, because I really can't stress enough how much I don't want you guys to miss out on the opportunity to get your questions answered, because we have literally 3 amazing examples of how they've gone through the education system into the whole world of apprenticeships. And I know sometimes it's very hard to navigate that world on your own. We have so many questions, so many queries, and you don't have the place or the facilities to get those questions answered. There's certain things that ChatGPT can't answer. Experience is always going to be AI. So let's ensure that your questions are being asked and you guys are asking your questions and you're able to get your answers just by signing up to the platform and asking your questions as I showed you guys before. Now, with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen just right now, and I'm going to ask the first question that's been asked on our platform and hand it over to our amazing mentors to answer. So, the first question, let's do it in order. All right, cool. The first question we have is, are there any apprenticeships on public services, and how do I get into them? Any mentor, feel free to just go ahead and answer that.
I'm happy to take it. It's not, I don't think, a law question from the sounds of it, but I do know that there are apprenticeships, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone else, but I think that the sort of the civil service do offer apprenticeships. They're not all degree apprenticeships, but most apprenticeships do offer some sort of professional qualification, professional ed. So there is a way of getting into public service that way, if that answers the question.
Just to add to that, I think if it is a law specific question on whether there's legal apprenticeships in public services, I did actually see one being advertised for a local council on LinkedIn. I don't know where it was probably local. But I'm going to guess they're probably not as common as a private practice firm. But I can't see why they wouldn't be there. I think in terms of how do you get them, it's probably going to be a case of keeping an eye out on what jobs are out.
Amazing. Thank you for that, guys. All right. So we have another question. Is psychology a useful degree that can be transferred to law in the future? If so, what parts of law and what specific modules of psychology would help, e.g. forensic psychology?
I can see in your, sorry, do you want to go?
No, go on, I'll go.
I was just going to say, I can see in the description of your question that you said that you're in year 12 doing psychology, maths and history. If it's a sort of general worry that you haven't done law at A level, I wouldn't be worried about that. I didn't do law at A level, and actually when I was going sort of through the applying to uni process, they basically reteach you what you did at law A level in the first couple of years of your degree. So you're not behind and you don't miss out. In terms of psychology being a useful degree, I think law is quite an amenable subject that any skills you can pick up in other subjects are transferable. So I see that you're doing history as well. Your sort of terminology and writing skills from that will be transferable. Likewise with psychology, there'll be lots of transferable skills that you can bring over to law that might not necessarily be exact matches, but I think the skills that you learn in those subjects definitely are. Sorry, Ophias, you can go.
No, I totally agree. I think I do actually, I don't know much about psychology. I didn't study psychology, but from my understanding, there's a lot of analysis that goes into a lot of the topics that exist, and I guess even from that sort of transferable skill, that will go hand in hand with what you do in law on a day-to-day basis. So I can't see how it wouldn't help.
Amazing. All right. Next question. I can see a lot of questions are coming in as well. So bear in mind, guys, if you don't see your question appear straight away, it has come through. A lot of them just have to be activated by our moderators, which will be done as we go through the call. All right, next question. What financial responsibilities would there be if I was to do an apprenticeship? The description says, I'm hoping to complete an apprenticeship in law. However, I am not very well informed on the financial side of things.
In terms of financial responsibilities outside of work, I think that very much depends on whether or not you stay at home or whether you move for the apprenticeship. Not to speak for everyone, but I know that when I first started my apprenticeship, a lot of the apprentices that I spoke to stayed at home. which obviously there's a lot less financial responsibility there. You're earning a salary, which is quite nice. So you don't really have much financial responsibility. If you are moving, it's all the normal things that you would expect. It's deposits on a flat, it's finding flatmates, rent, bills, food, all those sorts of things. A lot of companies, especially in sort of like bigger private practices, will offer you some sort of stipend just to help you get started, like before your paychecks have been rolling in regularly, just to help you get set up and established. Those don't always cover in time for a deposit on a flat, but those sort of things are in place to help you. And financial responsibilities at work, if there is anything that comes with that, whether it's, you know, client monies or any sorts of financial litigation you might be involved in, that is introduced to you very slowly, or it'll be part of all of your trading modules when you first join a firm.
Yeah, I'd also add to that if some of you are stuck between the two of sort of whether moving into wherever your apprenticeship is or staying at home with a relatively long commute, I know that most firms provide sort of loans for like season tickets and trains, so they'll pay for it up front and then you would take out your salary. So if you're in a position where you're sort of commuting into where you're going and thinking about, oh, how am I going to pay for this season ticket, most firms that I know of will support you with doing that.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. All right, next question is, I am currently balancing A-levels in music, business, and sociology. How does the legal profession, specifically in an apprenticeship, value creative backgrounds? And is it possible to maintain a musical identity while managing the high-pressure daily life?
This question is potentially something that's applicable to probably a lot of people who are thinking about doing an apprenticeship, even if it's not just relating to music. I think the difference between an apprenticeship and going to university is an apprenticeship, you obviously do have to be very on the ball with your time management. You are working full time with day release for study, and often the studying is more than just the one day. That's not a negative thing. It just means that you've got to be quite organized with your time and what you're allocating to, you know, personal hobbies and things like that. Personally, when I was doing my apprenticeship, I actually had another part-time job as a fitness instructor, because that's where my sort of personal hobby and passion was. And I didn't struggle with keeping that up. I actually only stopped working at the gym about 2 years ago, and that's just because, you know, I decided that I wanted to spend my time doing other things. But I think you can definitely balance your hobbies and, you know, personal goals and aspirations. You've just got to be quite organized with how you manage your time and what you prioritize. It's the same with social life. I think apprenticeships often get a bit of stigma about it's not the same as going to uni, which is correct. It's not the same as going to uni. It's just different, and that different doesn't necessarily mean that it's negatively different.
I would just add to that on the creativity point, about whether or not it's valued in law. Like I think Orpheus said already, law is very analytical. There's a lot of problem solving that comes with it, and fresh perspectives and fresh ways of doing things are never going to go amiss at any law firm or any profession. And you can ask anyone in any field, and no one will ever say that they're not looking for creative solutions to new problems, especially in the world of work that we live in now. Law is fast transforming with sort of AI and things like that. I know that the work I do has changed drastically in the past year. So creative people who are able to take on new methods of working and who are able to get up to speed with those things quicker and find new ways of implementing things that save people time, money, give better results are always going to be highly sought after.
Amazing. And also, everyone, just to let you guys know that all the questions that are being answered as well, you will have access to them after the session. It will be placed on the actual chat where the questions were asked on the site. So if you forget the answer, it will be placed as well on the actual question that you've asked on the platform. And again, you can ask more questions as you see fit. All right. Next question Is theology or philosophy a valuable degree to transfer to law? Or should I change my direction?
I think this
Um,
is we've sort of go for it.
No, I think I'm going to say the same thing as what you're going to say. I think it just covers the same answer we gave a bit earlier, that I think no degree is a bad degree to transfer into law.
Yeah, and I think I just echo something that Ofer said in his introduction as well about when he was talking about different routes in. There is no degree that stops you from doing law after university if that's what you decide to do. The typical, the standardized pathway for becoming a solicitor is the SQE, which are the exams that Jordan has just passed. And in theory, you don't need anything law related to do those. Some bigger practices do like you to have a PGDL, but that is something you can do sort of. I think you can do it over a summer, if not over a year, depending on how intensive you want it to be. But that door certainly isn't closed to you, regardless of what degree you do.
I'd actually argue that in a lot of cases, doing a non-law degree might actually help you get in a training contract. You have more things to talk about, more varieties of experiences, and in some cases, specialist knowledge that someone who studied a non-law degree probably doesn't have. So, yeah.
Amazing, thank you guys. All right, moving on very swiftly. Do you think a legal career builds stronger credibility than a politics degree alone? I'm a year 12 student and I would love to have a career in politics, and I'm very unsure as to whether I should do a degree in politics or if I should do a degree in law for more certainty, then see if I can build off that.
I think again, it goes back to what we were just talking about. I think the best piece of advice that anyone can give you is to do something that you genuinely want to do. If you want to do politics at university, do politics at university. If once you've done your politics degree, you think, actually, I would like a career in law, there's absolutely no problems with then transitioning over to law. I think the only thing with doing a degree first, if you're 100% know that you want to do law and you want to be a solicitor or a barrister and you want to get there in the quickest way, then yeah, doing a law degree is the quickest way to get there because you don't have to spend, a summer or a year, however long, doing the postgrad conversion. But really, I think 3 years is a long time at university and you should do something that you genuinely want to do.
And the other thing to add there as well is politics or law, they're not inherently vocational degrees. It's not like medicine where you go into it and well, not to say that you're guaranteed a job at the end of it, but you fulfilled all those requirements. If you are looking for a career in politics, which it looks like you might be, I don't think there's going to be a set route into it. And you talk about credibility. I think that comes from a bunch of things outside of it. Just not what you've studied. And there's always opportunities as well at universities to join societies, whether that's mooting and like mock trials or joining some sort of legal clinic that universities often have set up and things like that. There's ways of building up legal credibility without doing a degree or without doing an apprenticeship, if that's what your focus is on, building that personal brand. But I wouldn't say for sure that either option outweighs the other.
Amazing. All right, a little bit of a different one is a law career CV. What do law firms look for in a CV when hiring, other than things like degrees or A levels?
I'd say it can probably vary depending on what stage you're applying. I think when you're applying for a training contract, it's probably different to applying for an apprenticeship, purely based on the fact that at the apprenticeship level, let's say 18, there's a lot less to be judged on. But I would say what would be the same for both situations is how can you show, particularly in your like extracurricular activities, sort of skills that someone within the role would require. So whether that's teamwork, communication, and communication is quite a big one. But within your extracurriculars, how can you demonstrate that you have those skills or you've developed those skills? But most importantly, how can you, or within your CV, make sure that you're presenting these skills to them on the forefront, so they can understand that you know those skills are important, and you also want to display them because they think they'll give you a better chance of doing well. So I think it's just making sure every single part of your CV always can be viewed as knowledge or skills or some sort of competency that they're looking for, and rather than just putting it on the piece of paper for the sake of it being there.
I agree, and I think if you have had experience in part-time jobs, put them, especially when you're sort of applying as an apprentice, put them on your CV. Even if you think it's completely irrelevant to law, the amount of feedback I had on apprenticeship interviews, because I was a swimming teacher and fitness instructor, even though they had absolutely nothing to do with law, they were able to show that I could do time management. I had record keeping skills. I could organize a class of 6 children, which you think, actually, what's that got to do with law? But that's people management. That's ticking off objectives. I think if you're in the stage where you're sort of worrying, oh, I don't have any experience in law, I haven't had any work experience in law, I wouldn't worry about it. I'd try and, as Fias has said, go back through and see, well, what have I done there that would lend itself to a career in law? What have I done? If I worked at Costa, what skills have I picked up there that I could showcase as being applicable to the role?
I'd also add that I think a lot of people tend to fall down the pithole of having done legal experience and thinking just putting it on the piece of paper is going to be great, and then not actually even explaining anything that they've learned from that. And then they go from a big high of thinking I've got this great legal experience, and it actually just been a waste of writing on a piece of paper, because someone else who you might have worked in a cafe has put amazing skills that they've learned, and that is going to be viewed so much better than someone who just done something in law.
Amazing, thank you. All right, the next one, question for all 3 of the mentors actually. So maybe we'll do the same order that we did as the introductions. So, what A levels did all 3 mentors take at 6th form?
So mine was about as far from law as you could possibly do. I did English literature, which I guess shaped me up quite nicely, but then I also did biology and chemistry. I didn't really know what A levels I wanted to pick, and my family had some sort of pronated designs on me becoming a doctor eventually. So we kept those options open. I regretted it in the end, but luckily it didn't have too much of an impact, and I ended up where I am now.
I started before because I live in Wales and I went to school in Wales. And they do A levels slightly different to in England. You start with AS levels and do A levels. I don't know if they still do that, but I'm pretty sure they do. So I started with biology, psychology, art, and history. After the first year of 6th form, which got me the AS levels, I dropped biology and I stuck with psychology, art, and history through to the end. So I didn't do law. My school didn't offer law. And yeah, I think psychology and history probably lent themselves most to it, and art was just a nice creative output for me, which got me all the same UCAS points.
Yeah, and I studied business economics and geography. So although I didn't study law, I feel as if I studied a lot of subjects that gave me a good start in thinking about commercial and then commercial law. So definitely on the business side of things.
Amazing, thank you guys. All right, so another question we have is, did you need a specific UCAS score to apply for an apprenticeship?
I think I might be mistaken, but I think most firms' offerings are based on what the university that you're partnered with is their requirements. So from my understanding, the University of Law I think their requirements are CCC, and I think most firms mirror requirement, whereas I think for BPP it's ABB, and most firms mirror that requirement. but every single firm will put it on their website. So yeah.
All right, nice and simple. Amazing, thank you. What would you say is key when applying for degree apprenticeships? What should you include that makes you really stand out in these applications? Great question.
I think Orpheus and Jordan may have covered most of the stuff here, but just to really echo, it's the soft skills that you necessarily don't think make that big of a difference, or you might think are trivial based on where you pick them up. For instance, if you did pick it up at a part-time job, you might think that they're not relevant, but especially at an apprentice's level, like we've said already, you're not expected to have done loads. No one's expecting you to have spent months over the summer working at a law firm or anything like that. Obviously, going to insight events and being able to say that you've been to events like the one you're at tonight are going to help you, because it shows that you have an understanding of what the apprenticeship actually is, and you're not just looking at it from the outside. And people often have a lot of misconceptions about what law really is, especially in the UK. But those are the things that are going to make you stand out. Is anything that's beyond your academics is great. And at the very least, like Jordan said, it happened to me in interviews as well. At the very least, it's a conversation topic for an interview, whether that's an icebreaker or also something that you might bond over with your interviewer if you get to that stage. Those are anything that gives you those marginal differences over other applicants is going to be beneficial to you.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if there's a way that you can make yourself memorable in a positive way, and I think, as Jamal's explained, from drawing on actual conversations that you can have with people, I think that's really important. There's no point sort of putting your CV into ChatGPT and it regurgitating the same thing that it's doing to 100 other people that's applying. If you're in a scenario where you've got an assessment center or you're on an online, filling in the questions, actually really answer it. Like, think about real experiences that you had and why they are important to you on a personal level, not just because you think the firm's going to think it's great. I think that really helps people remember your name in a stack of 100 others.
Yeah, I think to sort of add on that, and I think this could apply to the written application or the interview as well, but I think the structure and where you answer is also very important. I think what's really the key, and I've heard from a lot of early careers, is when someone is given a topic, for example, why law, or why are you interested in the firm, or why anything, and you give your answer, whether that is something that the firm they're interested does or something in law that you're interested. I think it's very important in every single answer to give to relate back to why that's actually important to you. I think it's very easy to say that we're interested in a bunch of different things, but in the same way you'd answer an essay question at school, you'd always, you'd have like the different, I don't know, is it the AOs? So you apply and then you give an example. It's the same exact way. Put that AO 3 mark in, which is your example of why what you've just said is genuinely important to you, or experience you've done that has built that interest that you've said at the start. And I think if you see it through that sort of lens, or it's almost as if you're answering an essay and you're going for the best marks, which is by getting all of the AOs, I think you'll have a great answer to everything, and you'll tick all the boxes.
Thank you, guys. All right, next question. I hope I'm saying this right. I am not a lawyer, as you guys can probably imagine. Can you please tell us some tips for, I believe it's the LNAT exams? Correct me if I'm right. Very unsure on the format, grade boundaries, and where should I sit the test?
I think I speak for everyone here when none of us has taken the LNAT, which is unfortunate. From my understanding, though, LNAT isn't necessarily needed for every university. I believe when I was looking at it, I think it's London universities and there's one other location, I can't remember, but it's something that you wouldn't think. From my understanding of people I know who took it, it is a little bit more aptitude based than most things, similar to the UCAT in that sense. For anyone who knows anyone getting into medicine, I think there's essay writing portions to it as well. In terms of tips and tricks, I don't think we're going to be able to offer much here. I think the question was when, not where. In terms of sitting the test, I think you sit it in year 12. If you are applying to then go straight to university at the end of year 13, I believe you sit it somewhere between year 12 and year 13. and that's still fine. But I think you do need to have it in hand in order to obtain a conditional offer from a university that needs it.
I think I could be mistaken, but I believe you apply for it, a lot of them in the September of year 13. I think I could be wrong, but I think that's when you apply for them. And like you said, Jamal, it's not for every university. I think it's Oxbridge do it, and then the London unis do it, and then I think Bristol does it. But it's just a handful of universities, not all of them. And there are London universities. I think Queen Mary doesn't do it. So I think you'd be quite easily just to Google it, and it would probably provide you a list. An article would give you a list of where you need to do it and how you need to do it. All that information would probably be quite easy to attain, actually.
Amazing. We're coming to the end of the question. So if there's any more questions that still have not yet been asked, feel free to again go into the profile, punch in your questions, ask the questions, and then again we'll do our best to answer your questions in our call. Cool, amazing. Next question. What supercurricular activities would you recommend to boost a CV when going for a law apprenticeship? I have found it difficult to find work experience in a law firm. What other activities are valuable?
I think again, going back to what we were talking about before, one, I would do something that you genuinely enjoy. If that's a sort of extracurricular, not a work experience, not paid part-time job kind of thing. What's your hobbies? What do you actually like doing? And draw on those existing skills that you've got from that. If you're thinking relating to law specifically, I would, as Jamal said before, things like this are a great talking point. They're great to put on your CV. I attended this, I attended this. Why did I attend it? This is what I got out of it, etc. So there are lots of law-based experiences you can get that aren't necessarily working in a law firm. But yeah, I think really with CVs, I think people get hung up a lot on law experience. And personally, when I started my apprenticeship, I appreciate it was a long time ago now, so they are more competitive. I had absolutely no law experience on my CV. I had never stepped foot in a law firm. To be honest, I probably didn't even know if it's definitely what I wanted to do. I just knew I was interested in it, and I drew on all the reasons why I thought I wanted to, be an apprentice and be ultimately a solicitor. And yeah, that didn't involve me doing any work experience at all in firms. To be honest, I don't know if the others agree, but I find that firms, especially local to me, will not actually offer experience to anyone under the age of 18. And depending on how old you are in your year, in year 12, 13, you might have actually finished sixth form and have to have had the application process, the interview, the assessment centre before you've even turned 18 and been able to get any experience anyway.
I would say that I think a lot of firms are opening up to doing more stuff with sixth formers. I think at my firm, I've seen quite a few rounds of sixth form students coming in, and I think that is, especially in like the bigger law firms, I think that's become more common. But I think besides any real life stuff, all of you could log in today to this platform called Forage and do online virtual work experiences for a bunch of law firms on a bunch of different legal topics. So if it's genuinely you not only want to have it to put on your CV, but you actually want to have a taste for what it's like to do some sort of legal work, then Forage has a load of those things. A lot of firms also put solicitor apprentice specific modules on there, so you can actually do tasks that a solicitor apprentice would likely do and then speak about that in your interview. So I think Forage has made it very accessible for a lot of people, and I would actually recommend for anyone on this call to have a look at it if you're genuinely interested to see real work experience.
Amazing. Next question is, as a year 12 student, what can I do to enhance my application? What would you say to your year 12 self to prepare for the application process if you had to do it again? Thanks. That's a nice question.
I'm going to shy away from answering the enhancing application because I think we've done it a fair amount. But in terms of what I would have said to myself for the actual application process itself, it was a lot more daunting than I think I was expecting it to be. And as with any job, even for graduate jobs now, especially for the bigger firms and the private practice firms, there's a lot of stages that go with it. So once you've sent in that initial written application, quite often after that, you'll be asked to submit some further sort of cognitive behavioral test. And beyond that, you'll then be asked to do things like a job simulation, which is similar to what Orpheus was just talking about, except this is obviously being assessed. Whether those are things like sort of non-verbal reasoning tasks or having to respond to some scenarios, whether that's responding to an email or ranking what you would be most likely to do in certain situations. But the most daunting one that I remember doing, and I know that a lot of people feel the same way, is the pre-recorded video interviews. And those are often the final stage before you get to an assessment center. And in my experience, they're a lot worse than the assessment centers, because you are given a prompt and you're probably given a minute, maybe two, to think about your answer. And then it will automatically start recording you. You give your answer and then you stop recording. And if you're lucky, some firms will give you the option to re-record. That's not the case in all firms. So what my advice would have been to myself was to practice speaking. It's a lot harder than you think it is just to speak to a camera. It's almost easier to speak to a partner at a big law firm, because at least they're giving you something back by way of reaction or eye contact or just engagement in that sense. Staring at yourself and having to speak is an incredibly difficult skill. So if you can get a handle on that, that's really going to set you apart.
I think as well in terms of preparation, I think the answer you just gave, Jamal, is probably more important, but this one is also important. You're in a unique position in year 12, especially if you want to go to an apprenticeship, where you can start early, start your preparation early, learn how you're going to research a firm, learn all of these things now that you have the time to do it, and then speak to someone more senior and say, these are the things that I think are important to know about a firm. Build up sort of maybe an ideal firm profile that you'd like to know, put it onto a document, I don't know, 2 pages, and then work with it over the next year. And then when you actually get to it in year 13, you've got a template of a tick box template of all the things you're going to search for every single firm you want to apply to, and then you'll make that process of doing your A levels at the same time, which I know would be very difficult. But then when you're actually going to do applications, you've actually got something solidified where you can look at, and not just start trying to pull things in from a bunch of different branches. So I think just get yourself organized and prepared from now, trial and error, different things that may or may not work. And then I think when you get to the real thing in year 13, you'll be above what most other people will be at.
Just expanding on that as well, I think with the sort of research into the firms, do research the firms that you're applying to. When I started, I worked at an international firm in Birmingham, which was a 2-hour commute each way from home. And it's only sort of when we went into lockdown that I realised I didn't want to work for a big law firm. And I actually approached really small local firms to me and put the apprenticeship on a platter to them and said, please take me. And I think that's kind of gets lost a little bit sometimes with especially legal apprenticeships. It's, if you Google vacancies, job opportunities, it's big international law firms offering solicitor apprenticeship, 6 years, etc. And those are the ones that have the sort of assessment centre process, interviews, the psychometric testing. There is absolutely nothing stopping you from sending your CV to local firms to you, if they look like places that you want to work, explaining to them the solicitor apprenticeship route and them taking you on as a solicitor apprentice. I personally love working at my small firm as a qualified solicitor so much more than I did working in an international firm. And I think I got lost when I was sort of 18 and applying with, I just need to get a job, I just need to get an apprenticeship. That's not always the right thing. I think you need to make sure the firm is 100% for you aligns with your values. Can you see yourself working there in 6 years' time still? And it's harder than it's easy for me to say that with hindsight, because I'm at the other end now, and at the time you do just want to accept anything that you're offered. But I do think it's really important because it's quite a big commitment. So I would say do your research on your firms and see what's said about them, whether that's on Roll on Friday, which is the website where people leave reviews about their firms, or things like Glassdoor as well. They're really helpful.
Amazing. That was the last question, and amazing because it's right on time, right on track of time. So I don't know if you guys planned that, but if you planned it, then that's amazing. Now, I want to first of all say a big well done to every single person that's actually attended this webinar, because it does take a lot to invest in your career and your future. It's very easy to overlook it and just be like, all I'm doing is attending a webinar for an hour. But you're doing things that a lot of other people aren't doing. And as our mentor said earlier on, doing things like this is what sets you apart. So again, one thing I always tell people is do something every single day that your future self will thank you for. Right now, what you're doing, the information you're gaining, what you're doing, and in the future, when you start to use these things to utilize it for your benefit, your future self is going to be thanking you for attending this webinar. Thank you for doing this instead of watching Love Island, because honestly, I needed it. And honestly, it's going to pay off in the future. So guys, please continue these conversations. A lot of you ask questions. If you have more questions after this session, if maybe your questions weren't answered, if you want to get a repeat of what was said, it will be posted on the platform. But use the platform. In fact, just to complete, let me just reshare my screen with you guys. So again, so a lot of you guys, maybe this is your first time being introduced to Success at School, and you want to know, look, what can we do for you? Again, just like this session happened, maybe not virtually all the time as a webinar, but the conversation continues online, which is mentoring in a form of career zone mentoring. You're able to ask questions in the law career zone, but also other career zones. Maybe you're interested in another career. Maybe you're stuck between two. You're stuck between law and accountancy or banking or construction. We have other career zones where you can ask questions and get answers from our mentors as well, and other mentors on our platform. These are 3 of our amazing mentors, but there's also other mentors we also have in our law category as well. So also you're able to get that as well. We have newsletters about apprenticeship roles. Weekly, you receive updates about the roles that are available for you guys. If you're interested in doing an apprenticeship, if you're actively looking to do an apprenticeship, you will get newsletters every single week. You have access to jobs on our sites, to more webinars we have coming up, to more employer events we have coming up. We also do webinars with employers, with different people, different subjects. It's just keep an eye out for your emails. Make sure you're not don't be the person that just sees emails and scrolls past, because one or two of those emails is going to have exactly what you need. There's advice and guidance articles on the site. You can receive support and advice for your CV, for interviews, for exam prep, even for your well-being. There's so many things available for you guys just to grasp hold of. And again, receive support with your UCAS profile or your apprenticeship applications. You're not alone. We're here to help you every step of the way. They've given you some amazing tips about your CV. And if you want to continue these conversations, again, feel free to get through to us. Feel free to also post about this webinar on your LinkedIn. We'll be sure to endorse you, to reply back, to show our support for you guys as well. Just at Success at School on LinkedIn. Give your feedback. How did you find the webinar? How was it for you? And we'll be sure as well to support you guys how we can as well. Anything we can do to help you and to get you guys from point A to point B, we'll make sure we do as well, just to keep you guys moving forward and be the next. Maybe one day, who knows, you'll be on a webinar helping the next generation of apprentices as well. Again, it's a full circle. So guys, thank you once again for joining the webinar. I hope it made sense. Any further questions, feel free to ask on the platform. If you'd like to speak to me directly, you want more help with anything in regards to apprenticeships, my email is alex@successatschool.org. That's Alex, ALEX, @successatschool.org. Feel free to send me an email. Feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. Feel free to post about this on LinkedIn. And I look forward to seeing what you guys get up to in the future. Thank you once again to our mentors. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Jamal. Thank you, Orpheus. You guys have been amazing. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm pretty sure that you've at least inspired at least one person, but I'm sure everyone here left here with something that was valuable for them. And they're going to take that moving forward. So amazing, guys. Thank you so much. That is the end of the webinar. We finished 8 minutes early. which is amazing, on track. We didn't ramble too much, so hopefully that was amazing. Other than that, guys, it was amazing having you. Feel free to log off, and we'll speak to you guys online very shortly. Thank you, guys.